Yeah.
Yeah. Okay, you got me now? I'm Rebecca Charlton, and I'm delighted to say that alongside me, I have someone who knows more about Zwift racing than most, one of the stars of this year's KISS Super League, John Mould. Hello, firstly, warm welcome. What do you make of the course tonight? Because it's one that could offer up a couple of different scenarios, isn't it?
Yeah, definitely. It's based on Innsbruck World Road Race course of last year, and definitely with that 4K climb coming to the finish, it's a launch pad for a really exciting race.
Well, we've certainly got some exciting action to look forward to, so let's see exactly what course is waiting for the riders today. 3 laps of the Innsbruckring gives us a race distance of just over 26.5 kilometres. And even though the riders don't take on the biggest climb, there's still plenty of uphill sections to light the race up. Most of the 216 metres of climbing come on the short but painful leg snapper, peaking at over 8%. This is surely where the race will split up, and not just on the way up. The fast descent leads almost immediately into the sprint point, so don't be surprised to see a breakaway denying the sprinters. From there, it's about 2 kilometres to the finish line, so a determined break might even go the distance. All the usual power-ups are in play. Will we see invisibility used on that descent? And all the standard race regulations apply. And lining up for action tonight are 12 teams in total, comprising 2 UCI Women's World Tour teams, which is exciting, in the form of Showair 2020 and Canyon SRAM in there as well. John, some interesting community squads there in the field as well.
Yeah, definitely. Kind of that mix of community teams and now the UCI Women's World Tour teams. It really shows everyone's racing on Zwift now. It's going everyone's experience, so it should be a really good race.
Yeah, it's incredible, isn't it? And in terms of the riders within those squads, plenty of talent to look out for. One notable rider not joining us tonight is Mary Wilkinson, unfortunately not making it to the start line, but there are plenty more people to look out for in that field. Louise Huback, of course, taking the overall win in the KISS Super League. She's been 2nd and 5th in the Classic so far as well. Erica Clevenger is in there, and Ella Harris as well of Canyon SRAM of New Zealand. She's been absolutely incredible to watch since she, of course, won the Zwift Academy, got the coveted place on the Canyon SRAM team, and has gone from strength to strength. But who else are you looking for in there tonight, John?
Well, you look at the other ones. There's that Rosamund Bradbury, which is the national champ for the UK. So it's it's a talent-filled peloton out we have here, and just as you can see, they're just rolling out of the start. It's always frantic straight off the line, but it's come off, and it's a solid group already. So it's maybe everyone's trying to suss each other out early.
Well, yeah, everyone knows how much level of competition is in there tonight. But you mentioned the very infamous starts of a Zwift race there. Everybody has to be on it straight away, especially at this level. How much did you kind of get into the group of that when you first started racing on Zwift?
Yeah, well, you learn from experience. If you're definitely not warmed up, it's if you've seen a mountain bike cross-country race, it's anything quite similar to that, straight at the gun. So yeah, you have to be warmed up. You've got plenty of time, but yeah, it all comes with experience. You don't make that mistake twice, trust me.
And there's so many elements that come into play tactically as well in the world of Zwift. For anyone that's joining us for the first time tonight, could you just give us a little bit of an overview of the power-ups, the aero, the draft, the feather, invisibility, for anyone that's not aware of those?
Yeah, so there's 5 power-ups. You can gather these at any point. You get a chance to win, get a spin. You get a chance of winning one at the finish line, a sprint point, or at the top of a KOM. They end up being the aero, which of course makes you more aerodynamic, as it says on the tin, and then the draft, which you can just see one rider just using on the right hand side of the screen there, which makes it a lot easier in the wheel. You can recover, you can do a lot less watts than being out in the wind effectively, and then the feather drops your weight down, so your power to weight's higher. Then the invisibility, quite a new one, you disappear off the screen and none of your competitors can see you. And then a burrito just makes no one be able to sit on your wheel and get any benefit of being recovering in the wheel, staying out of the wind.
Now let's talk a little bit about the course tonight. We've had an overview of what's coming up, but that leg snapper, 8%, slightly over that in fact. How much do you have to be ready for that?
Yeah, definitely. You see, as we move along the course, you'll see we'll go across some cobbles and then we'll turn left and turn right and then you hit it. But always the first time up it, everyone's going to go full gas and it's over quite quick. But trust me, after the second lap round and the last time up it, it's definitely got that sting to it, and it feels like it goes on a lot longer than it does the first time up.
Well, we'll see it every lap on the course tonight. We're on lap 1 of 3 with 25 kilometres remaining. Rosamund Bradbury there, we mentioned her before, 228 watts she's putting out at the moment with a heart rate of 171. But we knew this was going to be tough very much from the start. A few people we've mentioned in the field to look out for tonight. And we've also got the team of Rowan King, which with some notable riders in there as well. Yeah,
definitely. You look at, I think Abby May Parkinson, she's guesting for them tonight racing, but then there's quite a young squad, I think, with Lottie Mitchell, Poppy Thompson, and then Katie Prankard, which is Katie is a former GB under-23 academy rider, so I think she's taken a bit of a gap and then come back to racing, so she's definitely experienced and one of the ones that definitely could be one to watch.
Yeah, it's really good to see Katie Prankard in there tonight because she's just got the calibre from the track, the road, and indeed on Zwift as well. So she brings a lot of experience to that squad.
Yeah, definitely. She's been racing since she was 14 probably, and she definitely knows how to win a bike race. So here helping the other girls and telling them what to do and using that experience really puts them in a strong point to win this race today.
Deb Stockley there, Harriet Dodd, Michelle Bennett, Claudia Baring, Ella Harris, someone we always expect to be very much on it from the start. I think she's just been phenomenal, and chatting to her recently, she just talks about how she wanted to just grasp the academy opportunity, and every step of the way she just fought for that. She wanted it so badly.
Yeah, it really shows that how good the Zwift Academy is. You start on Zwift, you show your caliper, and then I think she's really shown what she can do on the road as well. So she's a valuable asset to Canyon SRAM. So it shows that it definitely does work, and they've got quality riders, not just on Zwift. You're a quality bike rider on the road or cyclocross or mountain bike, whatever you choose to do.
Now, when you come into these races, especially on tonight's course, how do you play it in terms of your rivals and your tactics? Do you very much look around you and intend to follow the moves?
Yeah, I always I like to follow and then let everyone hit each other and tire the legs out and try and go over the top when stay as fresh as possible. But it all depends on what type of rider you are. If you want to sprint, there's no point wasting that energy and using the sprint early on when you're just going to wait and use it at the end. But on a course like this with that climb just coming with 4K to go and then the descent still quite rolling, it really lends itself to a good breakaway.
It certainly does. And this field in particular, they know exactly what their rivals are likely to do, don't they? Because they've raced across the Zwift platform a lot together now. Yeah,
definitely. This is it always comes. You know who's going well and who isn't going that well. You know the ones to watch. So definitely the first time up this climb, I think it's going to go quite hard, and then you're going to see people just backing off and just seeing it was more of a test of the legs to see how everyone's feeling today.
Yeah, because it does come on every lap, and you presumably need to keep an eye on having enough powder dry for that finish, even if you're going to go for the intermediate sprint points and, put everybody into potential trouble on the climb. You've still got to finish that off.
Yeah, definitely. So this is now, as you see, we're just going across the cobbled section. This is where the build-up to the climb starts. You don't want to be at the back of the group. You want to be already thinking about being at the front and making it as easy as possible when you hit the climb. Because if you're at the front, you can start your effort and drift back. But if you're at the back and 10 riders in front, they start losing the wheel, that gap is massive to close. So it's all about positioning now. They should all be thinking, right, I need to just move up, make sure I'm in a good place, and then start really putting the power down.
Penny Paulson, Amanda Coker up there as well, seeing some very familiar names as we'd expect, to just be positioning themselves very comfortably as this climb will ramp up on lap 1, 21.91 kilometres remaining, still on that first lap with plenty to come tonight.
Yeah, as you see now, we just turn right and go over the bridge, and then just as you turn left, it kind of bends to the right again, and there's a speed sign, 30 or 40 kilometre sign, and that's where the climb really starts. And then it drags all the way up, and it goes on for ages, and then it'll turn right. As you can see now, just hit that incline. The power-ups are going, a feather power-up already used. And on the right-hand side there, 8.8 watts per kilo. It's really, 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 really going hard here now.
And this is it, the infamous leg snapper that we have been talking about so much coming into the race tonight. Shayna Powis there, 454 watts. Seeing Rosamund Bradbury up at 8 watts per kilo there, and Louise Huback, as expected, 8.7 watts per kilo. You can just see, the strength that these riders are putting in up this. And this is the first time we're really going to see things probably split up. And of course, that descent afterwards as well. It's sort of not a case of napping on that. Yeah,
definitely. If you can just see, there's a few little gaps appearing over the top, and it's still really important for all these riders. You have to keep the pressure on over the top, because you get up to a high speed here, and the gap's going to go.
There's gaps forming all over the place, people looking to make ground on this descent as well, as we've come over the leg snapper for the first time out of 3:21 kilometres remaining of this race on the first lap. And we'll have the intermediate sprint point coming up as well soon.
Yeah, definitely. You see this little group of 6 have already come together, but they've all relaxed and just sat up. So maybe it was more of a test of the legs to see how everyone's feeling. They're not. It's still 20 kilometres to go. They're not going to be really, really keen to keep a breakaway for this long, but it's definitely made a selection straight away. As you can see, Bradbury 185 beats per minute. She's that's you really worked over that climb, and only 8 minutes into the race, it's come around really quick.
And how much do you need to take the opportunities to get some respite to actually recover? Because these races are relatively short in terms of the duration we see them racing for, but it is so full on.
Yeah, it is. Every little helps. Every little bit of freewheeling you can do, a bit of recovery, keep that heart rate as low as possible. As we're just coming up to the start of the sprint point, and this is the point if you're going to see any power ups, and there's a power up there being used. An aero power up was a little bit early.
So we've mentioned it, and you can see the start of the sprint coming up now, and we will see the riders absolutely wind this up to go for the intermediate sprint points. They are all to play for on this first lap. So we see Samara Shepherd and Kristin Falk working it there together as a duo.
And it looks like a Rath just sneaked that on the line. That was perfect. She used an invisibility power up just before that. But that was perfect time there, really.
Tanya Eruff there. Just seeing her now on the screen in front of us. And it was Falk there as well. So confirmation of that first sprint. Tanya Eruff takes it for 5 points. Kristin Falk for 3. And Samara Shepherd there. It was her in third, taking 2 points, followed by Harriet Dodd, another strong force to be reckoned with. And here we go. Let's just look one more time at that sprint point, the first of 3. Brilliant sprint there from Tanya Eruff.
You can really see now that group has shrunk in size straight away. It's not as big as we started with, and another little burrito power up being used. So if you don't want that power up for the sprint, you're going to start using them, because you've only got a few chances to be able to gather a power up only at a sprint point at the finish line. So if you don't want to draft in power up for the finish, you're going to gamble. Hopefully you get an aero one, and then you can use that aero one at the final of the sprint. Definitely, if you want to win a race, that I'd always back the aero one. You don't want any other in a sprint at the end.
How much did you kind of had to really learn about how to use them correctly when you first started on Zwift? Because we know how strong you are out on the road, but it's a very different element. Yeah, it is. It's
like with anything, you do it more and more, you get more experience, and you learn from your mistakes. So every time I went on it, you figure out which is the best one to use, and it takes a good bit of time, to be honest. You figure out which one use to your strengths, and depending on the course as well, it all makes a difference. So it's nice knowing now, but it wasn't so nice when I was getting beat every time I started on Zwift.
Yeah, and I think that's something else that was interesting when we watched the teams come into the likes of the KISS Super League, wasn't it? Because we maybe had our race favourites from some of the UCI World Tour teams on paper, but actually the community riders were outsmarting people. So you had one thing on paper and then some real surprises in the scenarios that played out.
Yeah, definitely. You use the Zwift knowledge to your advantage every time you do, just as you do in any other bike race. So it was a bit of a gap at first. The community teams definitely use that advantages to themselves, but as you can see now, it's becoming a more level playing field, and we're all racing, and it comes out on who's the best on the day, really.
And the riders just crossing that line there. 17 kilometres remaining. Harriet Dodd there on the front. You can see the sights of Louise Huback as well. Marianne Seacott. Harriet Dodd.
Yeah, it's a strong little group here. I think around probably around 17, 18 riders already. So with only 17.4k to go, it's quite a select group. And as you can see now, this is a bit of a time where they can all have a break, and there's not much going to be going on. It's not going to split at any point. So as you can see, Dodd there, 140 watts, trying to get that heart rate as low as possible. She's probably having a drink on the turbo, thinking, right, need to get ready for the next time up the leg snapper, because you're not going to break away from the group here and ride solo. You just want to take a minute, catch your breath, and then get ready to go on the attack again.
You certainly do. And again, for anyone tuning in and joining us for the first time who hasn't perhaps watched racing before on Zwift, Harriet Dodd there, we can see she's doing around about 210 watts, 166 beats per minute heart rate. Sorry, that's Claudia's we've skipped to now, but that sort of level that the riders are at now, 250 watts. Give us a gauge of that effort level.
Yeah, that's probably high zone 2, low zone 3. You're definitely still pressing on there. It's not really cruising, but it's a comfortable pace to ride at. It's a lot easier than 500 watts, like we saw they were doing up the leg snapper a few minutes ago. So that effort is already in their legs, and that won't go away for the rest of the race. So with 2 more ascents of that climb, but definitely the last time up, I expect it to blow to pieces even more than already.
Yeah, I mean, we can see the damage that the leg snapper did on lap 1 already. Very reduced. Superb group here with so much talent in there, but a lot of riders getting separated when there's gaps formed, and that's just such a problem, isn't it, early on, if that gap forms and you can't make it back across. Yeah,
you have to be aware. You have to be, as I said, you go across the cobble section, you need to start thinking about your position in there to make sure you've got a chance to hang on over the top. It might not be your fault, you might have really good legs, but if you're at the back of the group before that climb, you're not going to be able to close a 5-second gap when there's people in front riding flat out as well. So it really is important that you have to be aware the whole time you're racing.
Yeah, and I think we could just see the chasing group in the background there, as we obviously have our eyes now on the front runners, but there'll be a great interest in making it back across. Still plenty of time, 15 kilometres to go. If the riders can make it back across, it could still keep them in contention for that overall victory tonight.
Definitely. If you're in that group behind, you can see it's quite a big group, 10 riders there just trying to chase on. As long as the 10 behind keep pressing on and making sure they're keeping a good tempo, you never know, that front group will sit up, start watching each other, and you're back on before you know it.
And it looks to be Ella Harris of Canyon SRAM that is indeed driving that chase group. Somebody we know is pretty likely probably to bridge that gap over. So strong. Seeing her, as I said earlier, just competing at such a high level on the road and on the Zwift platform. She's really got it all when it comes to the knowledge and the power. Yeah,
definitely. And she's a bit of an advantage there because in the front group, she's got 2 more teammates. So, of course, they're not going to be riding on the front if they know Ella's behind. So as long as they keep the tempo going, you see the gap slowly getting smaller. But it's all about patience. You don't want to do a big effort and put yourself in the red, because once you get there, you're going to be useless. You still got that leg snapper coming up. You need to make sure at 181 beats per minute, she's definitely pressing on. 307 watts there from Harris. It's going to bring that group back, but it's always a bit of a question then. Has she done too much and going to be put herself in the red before she even gets to where the climb and where the race really kicks off again?
Yeah, I think whenever we watch Ella Harris race, we can just see the absolute pain on her face, and she just fights every inch of it, as we can just see her coming across to make contact now. She's back down to 137 watts, looking, as you say, to recover where possible in that group. Her heart rate 181 beats per minute.
You see there's a draft boost being used, draft power up, which is the perfect time to use it. She's been dragged across by Harris, and then you're just in the wheels there, making the most of it. So perfect time.
Helen McKay, 172 watts at the moment. She's there as well, sat in 4th place. Claudia Bearings there as well. Marlene Biarhead. Erica Clevenger as well. Show Air 2020. They're another really impressive squad. Of course, one of the UCI World Tour women's teams. But they've really put a lot into racing on Zwift, and they've certainly kept it competitive and entertaining. Yeah,
definitely. They've got a really strong squad, and Clevenger there in the front group again. So she's definitely one of the ones to watch tonight. She's been in good form, I think, and coming up to this, everyone's just getting ready already again now for the leg snapper, and they're starting to think about position, but they're just going to recover. This is the time that you're going to take another minute, catch your breath, and then just get ready, because it's all going to kick off again as we get closer to it.
And I know we've spoken a lot about this leg snapper, but it's not really a case of measuring the effort up a climb like that, is it? Presumably it is just all out, and then just really hope you can recover afterwards. Yeah, it's a really short one. It's probably 30 seconds, so it's one of that awkward pace. That's awkward time is you're flat out. There's no getting around it. You're going to go flat out and just hold on and grin and bear it, really. And it's probably one of the worst ones. There's no relax. There's no tempo to it. You're just all out. Is this one of your favourite courses, would you say?
Yeah, it's definitely one of the. It's one that suits me and my racing style. So I do like this little leg snapper and then drop down, and I'd always then hopefully make the front group and then just do absolutely nothing and make sure I try and win the race in the sprint. So I never do any attacks along this one. I let the course do the talk and ruin everyone's legs and hope that I've got good enough legs to win.
Well, we certainly have proven that throughout the series. Ella Harris, she's made it back and come through that group. She's a very interesting one to watch today. Shayna Powis, Marianne Seco as well.
As you can see here,
up there.
As you can see, like the Canyon Charm riders was just getting to the front. That's the perfect place to be now. It's really, even though the group's around 25 riders, still if a split opens at the front 5, you need to be at the front. This is really important now. As you can see here, Hansen, 171 beats a minute. It's all just that little pause before we all go flat out again. And just as they turn left, and the power-ups are just flashing up there. A few feathers already being used. And the draft power-up, it's perfect time for it.
Yep. So as they come on to the leg snapper for the second time, and you can see, as indicated on the screen, exactly what the riders are using there tactically, and we saw a lot of feathers popping up, as you noted, John.
Yeah, you can see there McKay at 9.7 watts and Huback just doing an attack here, just on the edge of 500 watts. There's 2 riders just slowly slipping off the front, and any little gap like this can really change the race.
It certainly can. Helen McKay, Jennifer Reel there, Cecilia Hansen, Helen McKay coming through there to take the first position at the moment. 316 watts up here. Really
could be the end for all these riders behind. Definitely now with 12k to go, this front group, they're going to be a lot more willing to keep riding. They know that it's only 12k to the finish. They're not going to if these riders behind us are trying to save any energy, and if there's a strong sprinter in there, they're not going to want to let them get back to them.
They're certainly not, and that's what it's all about. You can come in as one of the favourites, but one wrong move, we're letting a gap open, and allowing people like your rivals to catch you napping can mean that the race is over. 11.9 kilometres remaining. We're still on lap 2 of 3, and we are seeing those gaps form all over the place. Rosamund Bradbury, 292 watts at 108 RPM. Interesting also to see, I know we're coming onto this descent now, but the difference in approaches to people's cadence.
Yeah, definitely. The cadence is kind of a different one. If someone's a really powerful rider and they don't mind riding in a big gear, then they can handle that. But if you're a track rider or quite young, you like that gear spinning. I'm always a fan of keeping the gear the RPM quite high and just being on top of the gear and never getting bogged down. Especially with the sprint coming up, you want to be in a decent gear. You want to be able to sprint. You don't want to just be bogged down in a big gear. You want to just move it up the block and really get the legs turning.
You certainly do, and we can just see this group now. It's just reducing and reducing. We've seen gaps form all over the place, and this is a very high gallop caliper group coming across the line now, coming into the second sprint of 3 today, all to play for still, 11 kilometres to go.
And there's a little late charge there for Marath. I think she's won the first sprint. She'd be quite keen to win this second one again. And it looks like she's holding it off. Really, 100 metres to go. It's perfect time, perfectly timed. And it looks like, I think Hansen just got on the end over on a Pipta, but if it's going for the overall, she scored first and second, which is another great result for the overall sprint point competition.
Yeah, it looked to be Hansen there, but Tanya Ereth always unleashing the power, the raw power that we know she possesses on the way to that sprint. We'll get confirmation of those points in just a moment, but it's all happening at the front of the action. Plenty of people separated from that group, and it is Hansen indeed that takes 5 points from Tanya Ereth with 3. Kristin Falk takes 2 points, and it was Samara Shepherd that took the 4th place and 1 point. I think we can take another look at that second intermediate sprint point here on the Innsbruck course tonight. And here it is. Here's that replay of Hansen taking it from Ereth.
And we go back to that front group, 9 riders, and that really came. A few riders, I think, lost the wheel just in the sprint. So it really shows you have to make sure you're on it.
And we can see what that's done after 2 sprints today in Innsbruck. Tanya Ereth possessing 8 points now. Kristin Falk with 5. Cecilia Hansen with 5 points as well, 3rd at the moment. And Samara Shepherd takes 3. Harriet Dodd there on 1. Always a key animator, Harriet Dodd.
Yeah, definitely. She's definitely one of the favourites for today, and it's always going to be an interesting one now with that front of the race with Arath. She's got a decent lead in that competition, but if she wants to win the race, I wouldn't want to be sprinting 2K before the finish. You need to save that sprint to make sure it's there at the end. But it's always an interesting one. That group of 9 now, we're quite there's no sight of any chasers in the background, and they'll all be aware of that. So as long as they keep riding at a decent pace, it should be between these 9.
Yeah, we can't see a glimpse of the chasers now, and that that gap is quite significant. But we do see the likes of Tanya Ereth able to go and unleash that sort of performance in the intermediate sprints, but then actually finish it off as well. It's mightily impressive.
Yeah, definitely. She's definitely strong enough to be able to do that. So you're not gonna not back her, and she's obviously in good form at the moment, quite in the middle of the road season. So the legs are definitely good.
Hannah Ludwig there, 156 watts at the moment, just hovering up to around 200, 142 beats per minute.
Just as you can see, there's a draft power-up just being used. The draft power-up isn't the best if you want to win the race, so she's used it just before she goes across the finish line. And at the finish line, you'll have that roulette wheel spinning above the riders' heads, and hopefully she gets the power-up that she wants, that she thinks is the best way to win the race at the end of the day.
The riders cross that start-finish line, coming in to lap 3 of 3. A huge gap that has formed behind this front breakaway group of the day. 8.8 kilometres remaining. Tanya Ereth taking those intermediate sprint points. Marlene Bjarhead there, Rosamund Bradbury, who we mentioned, one to watch earlier. Harriet Dodd is up there as well. Kristin Falk. Helen McKay, also a very formidable group.
Yeah, definitely. This is if you're there in that group now, you know that it can stay away to the end. You've obviously got the good legs, and you should all be quite confident in yourself. You've made the split, and it's easier to fight off less riders. If it was still a group of 30, you'd be worrying. You've got more things to think about. So with only 10 or 11 riders in the front group, you're thinking, right, how can I win this? Who's going to be the competitor? Who's going to beat me in a sprint? And if you don't think you're going to win the sprint, then you have to gamble on the leg snapper or just after it, and hopefully you get a breakaway.
Certainly is all about gambling and taking the right time to go, that's for sure. Seeing Louise Hu back up there. Rosamund Bradbury. Oh, potentially looking around at each other now and looking to recover where possible before this finale with 8 kilometres to go now on this final lap in Innsbruck. And I guess one element of this is these riders are working tremendously hard on the turbo setup, but we can't see the faces on the screen. But what we can see is the data display. Do you have an opportunity to have a look at what other people are doing when you've got your head down and you're going for it?
Not when you're going flat out, not when the race is really on. But at this point, if you really wanted to, you could have a look around and try and figure out everyone else's heart rates. It's always quite hard because on the road you can be on the wheel, you can see someone really making an effort and their body's going left to right. You're getting really tired. But on Zwift, you look and the avatar's just solid. The core on it is beautiful, and you're just thinking they must be on a really good day. I can't. How am I going to beat them? They don't even look like they're struggling until you look. If you look at their heart rate, you do feel a bit better about yourself because you can see yours at 150 beats, and then Huback similar 146. So you're thinking, right, I'm feeling about the same. So you just have to be confident in yourself. If you've got the good legs, don't worry about it. But yeah, it does have a bit of a psychological effect when you can't really see anyone else suffering.
It makes such a difference, doesn't it? And the psychology is so important in a race like this, where it is absolutely on from the gun and you're giving it absolutely everything for those sprints to either hang on or to make the move yourself and to get over the leg snapper.
Yeah, definitely. You can see that little group there. Everyone's kind of hesitating now. It's just this. Everyone's just waiting to see what they can do. Bradbury sat on the back of the group for quite a while now, which is the perfect place to be. You can sit there, you can see anyone making any little moves. You don't have to worry about anything. You're just concentrating on seeing what the riders are going to do in front. And you can just see quite a bit of a chase group coming across, which is a really good chase from the guys behind. But with that front group really hesitating, a 6 and 7 second gap can really close in no time at all.
Well, something that we noticed is the riders perhaps recovering a little bit, looking around at each other, knowing that they had a very solid position in that breakaway at the front. But for the first time in a long time on this final lap, we are getting sights of the chasing group, and it looks to be only around 6 seconds now, that gap, as the front group now very much spring into action.
They would have seen as well. They see that gap closing down, and they know they have to start pressing on. They can't just let riders get back into the group, because the more riders in that group, the harder it is to win. So it's simple. They need to keep the front group moving. If you want to stay away and you've got any chance of winning, the smaller group, the more chance you've got of winning, basically.
Kristin Falk and Marlene Bjarhed joining together as a duo there, two very, very strong riders, and they're forming a little bit of a tidy gap there. Just a little gap there, but I think the innovation team have just closed it down and made sure that hasn't gone anywhere, and that's really good riding. They've got 3 in that front group, and they have to make sure that group stays together, and allowing 2 riders just to ride off the front isn't the best way of winning. Harriet Dodd closing the gap notably there, and there is just over 5 kilometres to go now on this final lap on Rundum Innsbruck course. And as you say, the riders have had such a strong ride in this front group, they're not going to want to let anything go away now, as we really see that chase group close down as well. Yeah, this is really it now. This is the crescendo to the bike race. It's 5.7k to go. There's no messing around now. Everything's out. You're going to hit that climb with about 4.3k to go. And then at the top, it's around 4 kilometres to the finish line, including that sprint. So if you've got good legs, you're going to go as hard as you can. You need to split that group up, and you need to make it into your benefit to how you're going to win. And how much can you sort of have a very specific game plan coming into a race course like this, and how much is it just hoping that your rivals are on, a certain ride or other? Yeah, it's one of them things. We always try and come in with a plan, because you control what you can control. It's just controlling the controllables. You don't know how everyone else is going to be feeling. So if you make a plan in your head and you start that race and you're going to say, I'm going to do this, and if you do that and you don't win, then you can't be angry at yourself. You've done exactly what you planned to do. You need to keep trying these things. If that plan works once, it might not work again, but you never know. You need to just be confident with yourself and make sure that you do what you plan to set out. Tanya Ereth of Canyon SRAM once again at the head of the action. We're seeing Ella Harris's data in there with 175 watts at the moment, 85 RPM and 171 beats per minute. The race is certainly on now, and this front group has really swelled after the chasers had every interest in bringing this back, with 4.7 kilometres to go now, and we will of course see that leg snapper, that sprint, and then it will be the big finale.
As you can see now, you come across these gobbles, and then that left-hand turn in front of the riders is just basically the start of the climb. So everyone here now, you're thinking about that, you're getting ready. It's really going to go up. It'd be interesting if there's any power-ups being used. You've got another chance to get one at the sprint, but if you've got a feather power-up, this is the time to use it, or an invisibility power-up, and then no one's going to be able to see you. You go as hard as you can, you get that gap, and it's all about trying to hold it for 4K into the finish line.
It certainly is. Another rider in there, Erica Clevenger of Show Air 2020. We keep seeing her in the middle of that group. She was third overall in the KISS Super League Round 2 on this very route, so she's definitely one to keep an eye on as the riders now wind it up on this leg snapper. And
there's Eppelbaum using an aero power up as well. That's it's not the best time. I wouldn't want to be using it there, but obviously she's just gambled and used it. As you can see, that front group Barhead really pressing on here. It's slowly lining them out, but if it's a good tempo, it's slowly the gaps will open, and but it seems like it's one of those where everyone's really on it. Another feather power up being used, and this is when it's really going to split. She has to keep pressing on here.
Impressive riding from Marlene Barhead, and that's the thing, no one wants to let any of these gaps go, so we're seeing everything pulled out of the bag, but once again the rest of this group are on it, but it is splintering a little bit towards the back as we come into this descent now for the final time. 3.61 kilometres to go on this final lap.
This is the perfect time. If I was sixth wheel now, I'd be thinking, right, I'm going to go straight over the top. It goes down a really fast descent and it'll kick up just before the sprint. If you're feeling fresh, you've got over that, this is the time to just go. Use your momentum. You see you catching that group, you want to go straight through the group right now.
Exactly what Tanya Ereth looks to be doing. As you mentioned it, she went for it, came through the group.
She's just got that gap. I think she knows it might not stay away. Everyone's quite aware of it. She's used the burrito power up to try and get that gap, but it hasn't prevailed to anything.
Yeah, just seeing her with that indicator above her head, and she's in the middle of that reduced pack now as we come into the descent for the final time. So that group is now comprising 10 very strong riders that all want to take the win here on Rundum Innsbruck. Seeing the gap forming behind now, you can see that damage was done.
Yeah, this is an interesting time now. You come up to the sprint. Will anyone contest it? If you haven't scored any points, you probably won't want to contest it. You want to save those legs for the sprint. So, but it's also a nice little tactic. If you go for a sprint here, you get a gap. People think you're just going for the sprint for the overall classification, but with only 2K to go, you may if you've got a gap, you just carry on.
It's a really interesting point, isn't it? Because actually, I'm sure you've been in a position where you see yourself actually get the gap that you perhaps didn't expect to have as they just cross at the start of that sprint point now and wind it up towards this intermediate point, and it is Tanya Ereth yet again unleashing the power to give it everything to the line to try and take this third and final sprint, and it looks like she is going to comfortably take that one.
And that was perfect timing. Still with 2K to go, she needs to start thinking about the finish. There's two riders, a little gap there is split, and Faka's just gone with an aero power up already being used. This is early for Marath, really early. You think 1.9K to go, you'd be saving that and using that in the last couple hundred meters, and another aero power up. I think this time from Huback, which it's got to be the time for attack. If you've used it now, this is it. As you can see, she's just slowly riding away from the other riders.
Confirmation there of that final sprint. It was indeed Tanya Ereth that took 5 points. Kristen Falk behind with 3. Samara Shepherd again taking third. So we see a huge attack from Louise Huback, and that gap is certainly forming behind. The sprint points you can see now, Ereth taking 13, Falk with 8, Shepherd with 5, Hansen 5 as well, and Huback with 1 point, and she is indeed the rider off the front now.
Yeah, with 1.2K to go, this is it. It's all like you're committed to trying to stay away solo. In that group behind, if you've got a teammate, you're going to be hoping they just go to the front and bring it back. it looks like it's only ones and twos there. There's no one's got a teammate, so this group's really going to stall. No one's going to be willing to bring that group back. And it looks like Huback has timed that, using that power up perfectly, got the gap, and she's really strong enough to hold on, I think.
A lot of interest, though, with a K to go now to really put the hammer down to take this back. But Huback, as you say, timed that to absolute perfection. And this is what we've seen from her time and time again, of course, taking that KISS Super League win.
Definitely 9 seconds already with 1K to go. I think if it gets any bigger, she's got time just to cruise in and take her hands off the handlebars on her turbo, but she can definitely relax. 389 watts she's pressing on, 184 beats per minute. I definitely don't think she's getting caught. That group's still going to stall. They're not going to be willing to really light it up now.
You see Tanya Eruff there doing everything she can, but Louise Huback, 350 watts, at the moment, 185 BPM. You said she could cruise, and she's certainly got her head down, giving it absolutely everything to the line with 500 metres to go now on this Innsbruckring course. And what a sterling move from her, and she is indeed going to take the victory here tonight. Louise Huback there, and then it's all to play for behind for second and third. Who's going to take the second position? It looked like it was Tanya Eruff there.
And then Bradbury picking up the third. Arath definitely had the strongest legs. She won all the sprints, and then unfortunately she didn't win the race at the end. She only managed second from that sprint, but a great ride there from Huback, perfectly timed. And hats off to her. That caught them with surprise after that sprint, used the tired legs, and rode in solo for a fantastic victory.
Fantastic victory for Louise Huback, followed by Tanya Eruff and Rosamund Bradbury. What an exciting race we saw tonight. Confirmation of that result there. Team Innovation, of course, Louise Huback taking the victory. Let's have a look once again at that moment. Louise Huback took the victory. Here is that winning moment. You can just see the conviction she went with. And we've seen her employ these tactics time and time again. And she knows exactly what she's doing on these courses. So well versed in how to take the win. Tanya Eruff having a really stunning evening in the saddle, but taking second there, followed by Bradbury.
Yeah, perfect timing. Really, really perfect timing. She looked strong through the race, and then timed that race over the top of Arath, used Arath being keen for the sprint. That really, it cost Arath the win. She obviously was the strongest sprinter today, finished second in the race overall, won all the sprints, but Huback with that great timing of the attack, straight over the top of the sprint, it was brilliant.
Well, that big attack from Huback was perfectly timed. Let's take a look at how she did it once again. And she just absolutely goes. She employs everything that she's got in the bag, and she just further increases that gap.
And that group behind, the only time you have to react straight away. You can't just let that gap go. And Huback was definitely strong enough to, as soon as she had that gap, race was over.
And she would have known with a lot of confidence and conviction that she had got that gap and that she was going to take it, but she didn't leave it to chance, did she? I mean, the numbers she was putting out there. Yeah,
she's definitely a deserving winner there. As soon as you're in that break, you have to commit. That was her chance of winning, and that was an impressive day.
It was certainly impressive to see. Now, you will have seen news of Zwift's latest world. Here's a sneak preview of the UCI Worlds course in Yorkshire. Well, we've certainly got a lot to look forward to, and actually more race action coming up later this week. That's all we've got time for today in Innsbruck. From me, Rebecca Charlton, and alongside me, John Mould. It's goodbye from us, but we will be back tomorrow with the Watopia Cup, so make sure you join us then. Bye-bye for now.